Let me start with the first question. Why The Tempest? Why now? After Titus, why did you choose that this would be your next Shakespeare adaptation?
Well, actually, The Tempest was the first Shakespeare play I directed. So, and that was in 1986 for Theatre for a New Audience. And I fell in love with the play then, and I directed it again, and actually 3 times, or 2.5 times. So after Titus, I did, at that time in 2000, the year 2000, decide that if I was to do another Shakespeare, it would be The Tempest, because it's one of his greats. I loved it. I felt comfortable because I had done it in the theater. I don't think I would like to do a Shakespeare film without trying it in the theater first, because the pared down minimalism of what you have to do in the theater and how you have to really do it with the actors, especially in a Shakespeare, you learn the piece. So it lends itself to cinema, as we know. It's extremely visual. It's one of his most visual plays.
I'm wondering, having worked on the play several times, what have your subsequent readings of it revealed to you? I'm wondering, now that you've done it over 15 or so years since the first time you did it, what passages stick out and what aspects of the play mean more to you?
Well, I think one of my favorite scenes is still the scene between Prospera in this version and Ariel, where they talk about compassion and forgiveness. And she says, "What do you think, Spirit?" And he says, "Should I forgive them?" basically. And he says, "I would were I human." And I find that to be the most powerful moment. Emotionally, and what the piece is about, what Shakespeare is saying, with all the joy and fun of revenge and let's get them back. Ultimately, this is about forgiveness and working your way through that. And that became very, very potent. It's so different. This is so different. In many ways, this has got some of the things that are the same as the play. I did it in a black volcanic landscape on my set. My set was a simple rake stage with a black sand on it and a white cyc, so the image of the clowns, the fools, dancing along the edge, that was in the original production, the silhouette of those 3 dancing. There are many things that haven't changed, but once Helen Mirren went into the role, without changing a lot of the language, it changed immensely. The piece just not because she's just a great actress, but also because it is very different, the dynamics. In my other productions, it was a male Prospero, and a female Ariel, although it was a mask, a floating head, and Caliban was with a mask, almost like a New Guinea mudman mask that he broke open. And in the film, I didn't want to hide, of course I wasn't going to hide Ben Wishaw's face or Jaimon Hansu's face, so dealing with that brought a different kind of sensibility to those characters as well.
What was your rehearsal process like for the film as opposed to your rehearsal process for the stage? Was it similar, or what ways did it work out to be different from that?
Well, in the theater, you get all your actors day one, and you have them for 6 weeks before you go into tech, 5 or 6 weeks, and it's really working that way. We did as much as we could, which was probably for Helen. Helen worked on it for at least a month, if not more. We did a reading a year in advance because it was extremely critical to both Helen and myself that this not be a gimmick, that putting a woman into this role had validity for the Shakespeare play. It wasn't about putting a woman in, but if you had a great actress do this, we had to change, obviously, many of the words, the he's to she's, the lords to what, the master to what. It was very interesting that we kept the word master because mistress doesn't mean the same thing. And that was an incredible discovery during the reading. What words in the English language do you have to change and which ones you don't? So, mum, we use the word mum, like mother, ma'am, queen mum, as opposed to lord. And this process of the reading informed us a lot about where we needed to go. There's a little bit of the backstory that changed. It actually filled it out. It's not longer than the Shakespeare's, it's just more delineated. What happened to Prospera, the wife of the Duke, when she became the Duke, which is completely acceptable and would have happened. She would have been the Duke. We rehearsed in London with Russell Brand, Felicity Jones, Reeve Carney, and Helen. We had those actors for about 2 weeks, on and off. Then in Hawaii, where we shot, in Lanai, where we shot most of the film, I had what we call the court, the David Strathairn and Tom Conti, Alan Cumming, and Chris Cooper for not very long, because these actors are busy. But I did have Jaimin, Alfred Molina, and Russell in LA for a hilarious and glorious 4 or 5 days as well. So actors did get to rehearse, and you rehearse in the bare naked room, and you really deal with the language and the physicality, and then, of course, bring it into reality on the landscape.
In recent years, it seems the part that gets, or the character who gets most sort of critical scrutiny has been Caliban, for all kinds of reasons. And talk a little bit about your conception of Caliban, where you see that character fitting in here.
Well, it was very, very interesting, because even in my other 2 productions, or 3 productions, I had either African Americans or Africans play that role. It is a non-white role. It is a mixed, it's actually, if you want to be technical about it, his father is Algerian, his mother is a blue-eyed hag. He's just not, he isn't a European in the white sense of European. This play was written at the time where there was many explorations, there were journeys to the New World. He may have been called a monster because he was a Native American. He may have been whatever, he was the other. Now, in this version with Jaimin, I decided, I take Shakespeare at his words. I'm very literal with Shakespeare, and when he says, "Thou earth, thou speak," or moon calf, all these wonderful words that come out of Shakespeare to describe, "thou fish, thou," these I incorporated. If you see his face right there, he is made of the earth. He is representative of the island, of nature, because the main theme in this play is nature versus nurture. And nature, the actual island itself, is Caliban. Is he wrong to have been attracted to Miranda when she becomes of age? Is that nature? And you watch this conflict in Prosper. She's a monster at that point. She actually is responsible for having brought her daughter to the island, put her in close proximity to another human being, and it's only natural. It's about civilization in that sense. So it was very touchy, this issue of putting a black man into a slave role, but it felt more honest. It's not politically correct, whatever that means, but he also has webbed fingers, he's got a blue eye, he's got the moon, the two-tone skin was always the idea that he was mixed, that he's half black and half white, that he has this incredible circle, even though that's not what a moon calf means. I love the idea that he sort of looks like a calf, a cow in these spots, and that there is this beautiful blue eye and this white full moon. So unlike the theater piece, the theater piece I put him in clay as well, because he did represent the earth as well in that sense, and Ariel is the spirit. He is slightly monstrous in his physical appearance because he does have those elements of nature. Play as well.